So yeah, I'm Zoe. I'm a Green Party councillor and Assembly member. I live in Hackney. Is anyone here from Hackney? Got any Hackney people? Yeah, great. Somebody from Hackney, brilliant. And I do feel like it's important to say just up top something that's incredibly important to Hackney residents right now, as well as people in London and across the country, just about the impact of Hurricane Melissa on Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba and the other parts of the Caribbean, and just want to send thoughts and love to anyone who's impacted. And obviously within the context here, express my extreme disgust at the fact the government's only pledging to send £2.5 million to Jamaica. And obviously within our context here, they still suffer from having Charles as their head of state. And I just think it's an absolute insult to people of that country for us to be pledging to send £2.5 million following kind of decades and decades of exploitation, neglect, and just the treatment of the people in the Caribbean by this country. So I wanted to kind of say that up top just because it's kind of my outrage. And I just think the context of being here with you folks today. So it is incredible to be here. I'm a member of Republic, and I was just showing Harry pictures of my bike that's got my Not My King stickers that are parked outside, helping to guide people into the building. So I am a big fan of everything you do. So, yeah, I know you've had a little bit of my intro, but I've got over a decade of working in the NHS and the public sector, and I genuinely thought that's where I could make a difference. I got involved in the Green Party in 2014 just as a volunteer, knocking on doors. But as I became more kind of disillusioned with national politics and got more and more involved in my local area and kind of saw that change wasn't going to come from kind of within the NHS, I took the step out of the NHS and into politics, and I now do that full time, which is a real honour. The context I came in was around kind of austerity from kind of 2010 and onwards, seeing the impact of that within the public sector and wanting to be an advocate for the communities that were being most impacted by that inequality. I have been able, as a Hackney councillor, to work on the climate crisis, to push for more equality for renters. We've implemented an ethical advertising policy, and I've done loads around our street markets, which I could talk about for hours, and about the fact that they're being impacted by gentrification. And what we've also done, because I think a lot of what we talk about here around wanting to abolish the monarchy and wanting a different kind of politics and a different kind of democracy, is that we've really brought in the voices from people who are very kind of ignored by mainstream politics. We've done a lot to bring in the people that protest on the town hall steps to make sure they have a voice within the town hall, and have made a really loud case for the divestment of Hackney Council's pension funds, although they're still vaguely committing but with no timescales. So then in the Assembly, so I've been Assembly member since 2014. I know there's people here that are probably quite interested in general kind of the way decisions are made. So the Assembly is 24 people that get elected at the same time as the Mayor of London, and our whole role is to hold the Mayor of London to account. And we do that through committee work, working cross-party as much as possible. Obviously there's more kind of agreement in some spaces than others, like environment, not as much disagreement as policing. But I have been working with Republic on the over-policing of protests. That's mainly the work I've done with Republic to make sure that you're able to protest and exercise that democratic right to protest, and not in a way that's kind of away from where the monarchy are going to be. For example, at Trooping the Colours, I know there was some real conflicts around where you were able to stand, which are just, kind of encroaching on other people's right to enjoyment, which me and Graham had a long conversation about that not actually being an actual democratic right versus the right to actually protest. And I've been doing a lot. I think, we are talking about abolishing the monarchy, but within a context where our democratic rights are being really curtailed and are really under threat. I think there's some really dangerous things coming through the crime and policing bill, going through the government around people not being able to wear face masks, not protesting outside religious places, the new thing that's happening around cumulative impact, which might be an issue for Republic, because they could say, protesting in one place has a cumulative impact. And it's something that I've been working with the Palestine Solidarity Campaign on, because they have the most bizarre conditions put on their protests. Things like not being able to bang pots and pans because it might disrupt business. But that one was put on them on a bank holiday Friday at 6 p.m. Absolutely wild. So I spend a lot of my time trying to hold the Met Commissioner and the Deputy Mayor for Police and Crime to account, as well as the Mayor. But I'm often a bit of a lone voice, but we continue to kind of hold up our right to protest. So I think sometimes, I joined the Green Party in 2014 and went door knocking, and lots of people would open the door and be like, oh, you care about my bins, or you care about the buses. And I think obviously the breadth of things that I've spoken about show that we are about kind of much more than that. And I think that has changed of our new leader, ZACK Polansky, who is obviously putting forward a kind of bold politics and really kind of trying to communicate the breadth of policy that we hold. And I think he's been a real key part of the conversation around wealth inequality. And it was amazing to see Republic at the Make Them Pay march in September. I don't know if, was anyone out there? Was anyone out there? Yeah, loads of people. Yeah, it was really great. And I think that was just an amazing coalition of people who were really calling out the wealth inequality and the inequality in this country, rather than it being like, you know, different groups with their different kind of specific issues. It was like a coalition of, you know, health workers and the climate movement and Republic. And I just think calling for, you know, a wealth tax, polluter pay and protecting workers, not billionaires, because, you know, 50 people in this country hold the wealth of 50% of the country, which is 34 million people. So 50 people hold the amount of wealth of 34 million people. And I just think the louder we bring this coalition together and the more we're trying to push for that change together, the better. I just want to touch briefly as well on kind of the way the Green Party does policy. So you must have seen our leadership election that kind of went on for months and months and months. But originally people thought that was a coup, that ZACK had had staged a coup of the current leadership. But we actually have regular leadership elections, and we have a very democratic system of making policy. So I'm passionate about drug reform, and we, you know, took an enabling motion to write that as members and worked with kind of NGOs to kind of develop our policy. And then members got to vote on that. So one member, one vote. And you can join the party for as little as like £6 a year. And we're not backed by big business or anyone with vested interests. So our members make our policy, and that's the policy that our leadership speak to. And I just think I've only ever been in the Green Party, but when I speak to people who've been in other parties, I think they are almost quite surprised that that's the way we do things. And talking of policy, I don't know if people are really aware of our policies around government, but I was going to read just the opening part of our statement around government policy, which is, you know, this has been developed and agreed by members and spoken to by our leadership. So we live in a state where over centuries of struggle, some democratic rights and institution has gradually been grafted on a feudal monarchy. In that feudal monarchy, all power flowed downwards from the monarch, and the people were subjects, not citizens. Gradually, some of that power has been delegated to bodies like the Parliament or to local authorities, and citizens have acquired some rights. However, our constitution still has many of those elements of its feudal past, including some remnants of royal prerogative. We believe that basic principle of government should be the reverse of this, that the power flows upwards from the people and from their local levels of government to the highest level. So I just think this is a clear basic principle of us, that we want to completely reverse the way that government is, you know, and the, you know, our systems of power, and we want to see the monarchy abolished, and we want a directly elected head of state. That is Green Party policy and what we are pushing for. And all that we do is around kind of those more kind of participatory models of decision making. So making sure that we do have you know, direct participation from citizens. We're pushing for citizens' assemblies. You know, we want proportional representation. I think, you know, we've got all these policies in place and we really want to see them happening. And I've really seen this as a councillor and as an assembly member about that kind of, that real gap between what people want and their participation in their local communities and what's changing and what kind of happens in their places of power. And also the kind of theatre that's kind of created around politicians, especially felt that in the Assembly, that it kind of became more about the politicians than about the people and the issues. And I think where we've been strongest as a Green Party is when we've bought the voice of residents. You know, like I've bought things to the Mayor of London and just been like, you know, this is really happening for this community and you need to do something about it. And I think that's what a representative should be doing, and that power should be with the people. And we believe so much in moving as much decision making as possible to the people who are going to be most impacted by those decisions. And we don't want secrets, we don't want hidden money, we don't want stolen land, we don't want people on their knees or homelessness in the 7th richest country in the world. I just think the inequality in this country is absolutely disgusting. And we don't want a monarch as a landlord who writes letters to the Prime Minister asking that the great powers of our taxpayer-funded government for his personal favours. And obviously, within the context of everything happening for Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor, the fact that the King was going to have to give permission to the Parliament for them to discuss his family is absolutely wild. And I just think this moment of, you know, just exposing the absurdity of the role of the monarchy within our parliamentary decisions and the power they hold on this country. And I just want to thank Republic for everything you do for in these moments to just hold up how absurd that is. Because the fact that, yes, I know that we need to centre victims and survivors, and I know that this is a historic moment for a monarch, for a prince to have their title removed, and we can't forget that. But the fact that he's still the eighth from the throne and is still, got many privileges is absolutely absurd. And I just, thank you to Republic and all of you for everything you do to continue to push for this to be exposed and to be challenged. So we are the main political party with our agenda to abolish the monarchy, and I want to hear how you think we could be doing more to support you and what ideas you have around things that we could be doing to change, because I really feel like this is a moment where we could be working together. So the Green Party are polling at the highest we've polled ever, so 17% in the polls as the second party, but that rises to 40% for those 18 to 24, which is just incredible, as well as that us having a high vote in London. And at the last election, we quadrupled our number of MPs from 1 to 4. Our membership has gone up hugely since ZACK was elected. So he was elected in September, where we had 60,000 members, and we're now on over 150,000. So I do feel like there's this real shift happening in politics, and we are in an incredibly strange and dynamic moment in our political systems that the establishment parties are collapsing, and if we do not connect properly with the people who are experiencing the most intense impact of austerity and of inequality, then we are going to see a reformed government. And I think there is a real opportunity for Greens to connect properly with people, put forward these policies that are really going to address that inequality. The fact that the issues that we are experiencing are to do with the inequality in our country. They're due to the decimation of our public services. They're due to the shift of wealth from the public to, private profits, whether that's in the way our water has been privatised or the fact that we don't have rent controls and £70 billion in 5 years is transferred from the government to private landlords in housing benefits. People can't afford their rent. Like, all of these situations need to be challenged, and we need policies that properly address the wealth inequality in our country. I'm just really excited to be here. I'm excited to think about the way that we can do politics differently, whether that's within local government, within what the systems of power that we can challenge. And just really inspired by Harry's opening remarks about this being the moment and that shift towards people's views on a republic and away from the monarchy. Just thank you to Republic. Thank you to everyone for being here and everything you're doing. And just happy to take questions. Completely hear you on us needing to be more bold and more out there about our policy to abolish the monarchy, and it's something that I've been pushing for a long time, because I think it is, especially in moments like now, to put into people's minds there are a different way of doing things. We don't just have to accept the status quo. I will take that back to talk to ZACK about it, but I know that he did mention it explicitly in Newsnight when he was on with Rory Stewart last week or this week. No, and it's good feedback, because obviously I'm in my great green-centric world sometimes, but I'll take that back. And I completely agree with you on the internal groups that are pushing for change within political parties are hugely important, especially when they're working with unions and other groups. Because we've actually worked with drug reform groups in different political parties, because obviously we're all pushing for reducing drug harm. So I really do get that network. And yes, Republic were at our conference in October, and there is, I don't know, you might want to say what the Greens for Republic. There was a motion that came to this conference, but I don't think it was heard in the end, but about, redoing the House of Lords and it being a different structure, which is something we talk about a lot. And we're just about to select our list to run for the House of Lords, which is an interesting thing anyway, but all the candidates were saying they wanted to get rid of it, which is a strange thing to do.
We've had a question come in on a related matter. Zoe, do you think the Green Party will make a referendum on the monarchy a policy?
Yeah, I think that's the bit that Danny was just speaking to, that's the policy that needs to be more clarified and more kind of brought up to date and specific. But if we are putting it through Winter Policy Fest, it will come to conference next year, and we can just be really explicit about those forms. But yeah, that is what I think our policy is and should be around the referendum. Yeah. I think it's about how you have the conversation at the right time, and I think obviously we can probably talk about the referendum Brexit for a long time, but obviously the way that was set up, the question, the fact that the Remain campaign had and I know lots of people who were in the Remain campaign but didn't have a clear, the messaging wasn't connecting to the real reasons that people kind of believed in what was happening. So I think there's loads of learning we can have from that referendum. We want to do a referendum on the Mayor of Hackney. And Hackney, I'm running to be the Mayor of Hackney next year, but we also want to have a referendum on that because it's the way it's brought in, so it's the way it would have to be looked at because it's a directly elected mayor with far too much power. But it's the same thing. We want to be able to do it in a way that everyone knows about it rather than just kind of dumping it on people and not. But yeah, I don't know if Danny's got any conversations from the Green group on referendum. Yes, we love proportional representation, and we've often spoken to the other parties about it being a condition of any coalition, that we would only, obviously we're in different times now, but that has often been, when we've spoken to other parties ahead of general election, has been something that we've kind of put on the table. Because even in Hackney, we got 25% of the vote in 2022 and we got 2 councillors, whereas we would have like 12 or 15. So it's often, and we often talk about that, we're like 25% of the people voted for us. Like it might not look like it with 2 or 3 of us. So I don't know how many we'd have across the country. 1.2, almost 2 million people voted for us. But I don't actually know how that would work out. But it'd be like 30 or 40, I reckon.
The point of PR.
And we saw it in the Mayor of London election. So I ran to be the Mayor of London for the Greens last year, and it was the first time it was that single vote rather than the first and second preference, and it completely changed the election. It was so bad for democracy because the whole thing, Sadiq spent the whole time saying, well, if you don't vote for me, Susan Hall's going to get in the Conservatives. It was never on ideas. Every now and then he had a policy, but it was basically a campaign around don't vote for them because I'm just about better than them, and it was horrible. It became this whole election just run on that, and I just think it's not just how people vote and the result. It completely guts out our democracy and our ability to discuss policy. So I think that is an interesting question, and I think the Green Party, obviously the fact that we've gone up, like doubled our membership in the last couple of months, I think is a really interesting moment for us to really be really clear about what our policies are. Obviously people sign up to that when they become a member, and for me it's a core part of our principles because it's about a core part of democracy. And obviously it has been our policy since 2008. It's very helpful having Danny in for specific dates. And I think this policy going through Policy Fest into conference next year will show that, will kind of reiterate that as a position. And again, it's a conversation, we are reflective of the public in lots of ways, and it will just be up for us to have lots of conversations in the party about what it means and how we talk to people about that on the doorstep. But I would say that it's a majority of people's views. I mean, what do you folks, what's your folks' position? I reckon our folks' position. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm sure that's our position too. We support anything you support. I'm very driven by experts and people that are really close to the issues, and so I would say that our position is your position. Yeah. Yeah, so saying that anyone who's a member can join Policy Fest and listen online, and can contribute to making the policy, because that's what's so wonderful about Green Party policy making. Like I said, I've done that from beginning to end with the drug policy, and it's just great because you kind of get all the experts involved. You do have conversations with people with all different perspectives, because drug policy was similar to that, really, that people had very different views that legalising and regulating wouldn't be safer, and it was great to have those conversations across the party. So it'll be the same. Winter Policy Fest is part of that. But yeah, people, if they sign up, are able to get involved. Yeah, I think the time of just shying away from talking about policies that really make a difference, and we need to, as politicians, to lead those conversations and to be bold and brave and not be worried about, votes in and I do that with drug reform. Like, I speak out on drug reform all the time to people who, it's a really taboo subject. There's loads of stigma around it and loads of misinformation. I think we need to be the same with abolishing the monarchy, and I think ZACK's leading us in that way. I think he communicates in a really bold way. He's obviously not afraid to say things on trans rights, on abolishing the monarchy, and just be really clear about what our policies are. So I think I think this is a really interesting time, and I think over the next year, us redeveloping and relaunching that policy will be a real moment too, because it will be spoken about at conference. So yeah.